Jennifer's here in conjunction with one of the exhibition's playlists, which is currently up right now. And I came across her work while reviewing video submissions for the exhibition playlists. And her submission stood out particularly interesting for me. It was a very interesting submission that I just kind of held on to, and I was hoping to get the opportunity to include her in the exhibition in some way. And so that's why I'm so pleased to have her here tonight to have her share her artistic and curatorial practice with you all here tonight. So thanks so much for coming out. Jennifer Chan is an artist curator, and she's currently pursuing her Master in Fine Arts in Art Video at Syracuse University in New York. She also holds a Bachelor of Arts from University of Toronto, Mississauga in Communications, Culture, Information Technology, Art, and Art History. And she has presented her research in antisocial online behavior at the Open Studio Conference in New York City, as well as VTape in Toronto. And she's currently curating a video exchange between Toronto, Stuttgart, and Syracuse. She has previous performances at Nuit Blanche and at Fero Performing Arts Center, and a curatorial employment at Interaccess in Toronto. So thanks so much for Jennifer for making it to Sackville during her master's program, which I'm sure it's very busy. So thanks so much for coming out, and finally thanks to the Canada Council for their ongoing support. So welcome, Jennifer.
So thank you, Kristen, for inviting me, and thanks to the Owens Art Gallery. I'm just going to pin this mic on before I start speaking. So this talk is really going to be about how web-based artists are using online distribution platforms to collect and curate found images, and also images that are authored by other artists, and also how they use quasi-antisocial tactics like trolling, spamming, flooding, and griefing to assert themselves artistically on social networks. And so I just want to start here with talking about how really the internet is a system of computers. It's a network, and really people are behind these computers, and we often forget this when we're talking about new technologies. We sort of think that what happens on the internet just sort of stays there, and that our interactions stay there, but really there's an extension from our interactions in this virtual environment into our practices in everyday life. So we can look at the internet as a tool for improving our socialization, or we can also perform subversively on it. So I'm looking at trolling, spamming, flooding, and griefing as tactics for artists to perform subversively and to ask bigger questions about institutional ways of behaving, or the way we are socialized to behave on Facebook. Like, you know, we press the like button to perform a sort of agreeability to someone else's status, or we add people in order to try to make a connection with someone. So since the show that Kristen has curated is about the use of favorite YouTube videos and showing them in this gallery space, I want to talk about existing online art distribution systems first, and how net artists or internet artists are asserting their role on the web. So yeah, it's a very quick overview of online art distribution systems as they have sort of been self-organized now. And this would be beyond Rhizome, Artifag City, YouTube, Vimeo, DeviantArt, or the Google Art Project, which are more so owned by institutions, or they're more established. So I'm looking at what emerging artists are doing across the world. Well, firstly, there's Rhizome, which is like a portal. It actually first started as a mailing list, and it started by an artist called Mark Tribe, but eventually got bought by the New Museum, and now it's like this portal, like a collective consciousness for new media artists to distribute their artwork, to talk about late kind of influences and happenings in the intersections of art and technology. VWork, this VWork actually, is run by 4 more established media artists. And as you can see, there's this kind of white background which emulates the white cube gallery space. There's We Make Money in Art, and it's a more, I guess, discursively grounded kind of blog that collects art reviews, it collects opinions from different people who review shows that involve bio art, media art, video art from all around the world. Here's Found, and it's an image bookmarking website, and you can actually choose different ways of displaying or showing these images that are collected. They're found images related to design and everyday culture, but also it makes recommendations of what you might be interested in looking at. Let me just go back here. This is painted.etc. It's a Tumblr that's started by an artist called Ry David Bradley. And as you can see, it also looks a lot like Vvork, but it's like a constant stream of images. And for him, his curatorial or kind of perspective on curating or collecting these sets of images really comes from, wanting to look at the lineage of painting after the popularization of the internet. So the reference to painting and media art, and also this kind of bad Photoshop look, this kind of bad Photoshop effect that's quite popular amongst internet artists right now. So what's special about Tumblr as well that differs from all the other websites I talked about is that there's this option to reblog or repost whatever you enjoy looking at. So a lot of aesthetic kind of principles, I guess, come through. And this is started by Jason Alexander Flores. It's mortality within the unsurreal island of infinity. So a little bit of play on language there, and deliberate kind of complicated description for his curatorial perspective. And this is updated every 2 to 3 weeks. It's an album on Flickr, which is predominantly for photographs. But he's decided to sort of collect these different, badly photoshopped images and provide context for these images. And this is the random board, /B, on 4chan, which is an image board where you can just post whatever you want. It's an unrestricted posting site. And also surf clubs are a part of this kind of impulse to collect and show and share random links. So they're usually groups of friends who use the internet and that will make posts, much like in a blog. This is Dump FM, and it's sort of been hailed as the new 4chan because one can just chat with images here. So again, we see aesthetic principles come into play in the formation of a community, and you can also like these images. And go back, sorry. So yeah, I also posed the question to people using Dump. Hey, I'm going to give a talk on online identity in a month. What do you guys think I should talk about? And really, I was just met with answers by a whole bunch of random images. One person told me to talk about online pretension. And so I think they're referring to really the collection of certain images to form an identity as well. And so we've come to trolling now, really as a tactic for self-promotion. But actually, can anyone here maybe tell me what trolling is? And maybe you guys have encountered this word on the internet. So according to Wikipedia, it's really like the use or making or posting of random, irrelevant, or inflammatory statements on a message board to elicit a certain emotion from a community or from the original poster. But according to the satirical Wikipedia of online culture, Encyclopedia Dramatica, it's about posting a redundant statement that has been already mentioned before, and it's used to make the following poster sort of look like a fool. So it's really for me, I think I've abstracted the definition to sound like it's to incite ambivalence or controversy in a community. And you're probably wondering, well, why would anyone want to do that? And I think when you troll, you draw attention to yourself and you're asking bigger questions about the system in which you're operating in. Well, so has anyone actually seen this on Wikipedia? It's kind of appeal for donations to keep the online dictionary free. And I think it's a good intention. But what has been discovered is that every time they've made this campaign, more and more money is aggregated, and perhaps more than is needed, and it all goes to Jimmy Wales. And so the founder of 4chan, Christopher Poole, decided to troll Jimmy Wales by making a similarly parodic banner asking for donations, seemingly. But what you get is that fucking cat.jpg, which shows up instead of the kind of appeal for donations. So really, this is a more intellectually driven kind of troll. And I guess the one-to-one ratio of trolling we can also make is seen in Jason Alexander Floor's work, being annoying. Let me just pull up the video. So basically he uses a screen recorder to document all these small gestures of posting the same kind of relevant model image from American Apparel onto these different kind of people's walls on formspring.me, which is a question and answer site. And so sometimes there are some very random uses of trolling. Not all the artists I mention here actually are consciously or deliberately trolling per se. And so my definition, once again, I iterate, is abstracted from the original kind of gaming and forum cultures that it came from. Scandalicious was a project by Anne Hirsch, who really was looking at this idea of the cam whore that was becoming very present on YouTube. And I'm just going to pull up her video as well. So she made a ton of dance videos on YouTube, and I think she was really wiggling our expectations of what a cam whore should behave like. And eventually she took this onto reality TV, where she was on Frank the Entertainer, A Basement Love Affair, and she stayed on for 6 weeks. And really also wiggling those assumptions of what women should perform like in a situation where there's a narrative set up for competition to happen between beautiful women. So first we're going to look at one of her dance videos. And if you guys have any questions, just go right ahead, ask. Is that playing? I guess I should go to the beginning. Anna Hirsch likes to think of herself as an amateur social scientist. It's what she speaks of herself as, and she initially made these dance videos for YouTube, and then eventually decided to go on VH1 and explore the bigger concept of a fame whore. And so I'm going to show you a clip of hers as well on the show. Should play.
Pretty sexy, which is
Sorry about that with tech difficulties. Just reloading the page. I guess we've got some streaming problems there. But so anyway, with her performance on that show, she was initially trying to come off as the girl next door, a sweet, awkward girl, and she had told them that she was an artist. But I suppose they weren't really thinking about maybe contemporary performance art. They were more so thinking about her as a sculptor. And so, yeah, she played up that role, and she lasted for 6 weeks. And on the 6th week, she decided that it was becoming very difficult to sort of navigate her way through in a very competitive environment. And she decided to commit TV suicide by deviating from her role as this sweet, awkward girl, who also thought she was very hot. That's what she said to get onto the show. But yeah, she decided to deviate from her role by singing a rap song that was very profane when she had an immunity challenge to complete with one other girl. And she said a whole bunch of very sexual and profane things. And then, like, you know, all the censorship came in on her performance. And yeah, so that sort of blew up a little bit on the show. And then there were a couple of blogs that also blogged about her performance on that show. But also, she was covered on Hipster Runoff, a very culturally relevant blog, sort of as a troll. And so they really, a lot of people didn't know how to deal with her, like, in terms of whether she was being earnest and, you know, performing this cam whore, fame whore thing, or if she was, you know, using this occasion really to try to upset our expectations in terms of what someone performing on a reality TV show as a woman might want. And this is Iran Ridley. He's an emerging artist in London right now. And he had started an alter ego persona called Teenage Dog Fan Club in 2008 on Facebook. And he had used it just to post really random links and to share media art that he didn't release before. And he reinitiated this project and made a whole bunch of cyber cuddle love performances where he made many of them. So it was like repeated, you know, making of these events. And he promised, you know, specialized live stream performances by request to viewers, and then didn't go to any of them. And also deactivated his Facebook twice that week. His name, though, like, he has 2 profiles, and one of them has 2 A's in them, and one of them has 1 A. And so he really never actually left Facebook, but he disabled one of his accounts. So anyway, he canceled all these performances. And he also had a Tumblr that was a private Tumblr in which he was really inviting people to submit to. And he only gave the password to people who were interested in participating in his performances. And he would then, he would then post the odd image that he had made, but all the other posts were really consisting of images that other people made, or other people, interactions with other people that then became part of the art. And he would also erase their names. So yeah, for him, he, as the artist, claimed that he was trying to separate himself from the artwork and to just have his work on the web on its own. But as he canceled all the events right after, I talked to him about it and decided to troll him back by writing this article about his performance and including our conversation on it non-consensually about how his deletion of his his own profile was really a way to address his absence on a social network, and thus is a form of self-promotion. And I think he also somewhat agreed to it a little bit, like this was part of the performance. Then it's anti-art that's actually pro-art. So yeah, this became all part of this kind of mythology of his persona, Iran Ridley the troll, Iran Ridley the cyber cuddle teenage dog fan club guy. So anyway, I'm going to talk a little bit about spamming and flooding, or excessive multi-posting. This is just a slide off 4chan of someone who repeatedly posts inflammatory comments or repeats the same thing. So internet performance art, it was a Facebook account that was started by The Jogging, who are a collective consisting of Brad Trammell and Lauren Christensen. They had made this, this Facebook profile where they decided to perform. And they made all these kind of albums. The screenshot is like an important documentation tool for web-based artists. So they also had this project where they posted on various blogs, and people also reblogged an open call for work to be exhibited or posted onto other museums and galleries' Facebook walls. So really like critiquing the kind of insulated system of almost regulating even the gallery Facebook wall, because any kind of irrelevant post or posts from other people or their artworks would not be appropriate, despite the apparent interactivity that's conveyed by the currency of being on the social network. So really using Facebook as a medium for performance, thinking of Facebook gestures as performances, and also looking at Facebook as a site of institutional critique. But really the LACMA caught on to the fact that they were going to do this, so the LACMA shut their wall down for about 3 days. And so then they relocated the performance onto the Walker Art Gallery as well. And so what you would have seen was a whole stream of posts of other people's own artworks on the Walker Art Gallery Center's wall. So this was another performance where they were tagging someone else's images. I'll just go back here. Also, they were literally posting brick wall images onto the Art Institute of Chicago's wall. So like literally this kind of wall that cannot be vandalized. And yeah, they got into trouble with Facebook often for just sort of intensifying processes of interaction with the community. So for example, adding too many friends on Rhizome's page, posting way too many illegally taken images of Tino Segal's Guggenheim exhibit. And at that time, I think there was a kind of moving performative sculpture at the center of the floor in the Guggenheim that you absolutely could not photograph, not even with an iPhone. And so I think they had taken photos of it, or they had lifted a photo from the internet and then repeatedly spammed the wall of the Guggenheim with it. And so all these gestures seem quite ephemeral, actually, and the only way to document it is with the screenshot. And I will be talking about The Jogging's work a little more later in this discussion. Wikipedia Art was a site that was started by Scott Kildall and Nathaniel Stern. It actually originally was a page on Wikipedia, but that got removed in 15 hours after they had posted it. And really, the deliberation for removal of a page should be about 5 days, but that all happened really quickly. And I'm just going to show you a video of the project.
Scott Kildall decided that we wanted to make this kind of poetic intervention and see what happens.
The original page, a Wikipedia entry,
So yeah, they were really using the Wikipedia page and the editing system, this kind of supposed open editing system, as a stage for public intervention and performative citation. So that hopefully everyone in the end could edit, contribute, and execute the art, and then, you know, go back and make that citation. And they actually got called trolls by Jimmy Wales, which they found quite funny. But so yeah, often in these examples, really, it's the perceived intention of our interaction on these social networks or virtual environments that sort of constitute our persona. And they sort of like took that up as part of the mythology that became Wikipedia art as a project. And to go back to the jogging, which is a similar project they did, was Assembly, where they got any average kind of internet user to vote on a page to be mass visited, really. So they made this page with 25 iframes on it, and whenever anyone visited, 25 of these pages supposedly would be opened, and what came out in the vote was rhizome.org, actually, amongst others, like justchillin.org, which was an online curatorial collectives website, and also their own Tumblr website also came up in the votes. So really they're trying to institute this democratic process and mass visitation attack to a website in order to try to overthrow it temporarily by occupying too much bandwidth. But also the internet service providers caught onto this and shut their site down after they were given 72 hours to decide on whether or not they would pull the page so that they could retain all their material on the internet. And they also had this democratic kind of poll voting process to decide what to do about that situation. But they didn't give in, so their page was removed. And so I find this kind of institutional critique sort of interesting because it makes me ambivalent, actually, because rhizome.org is actually such a major portal for the sharing of what's going on in media art. It's like one of the dominant ones, and it was actually initially started as a DIY project as well. So it's a little bit paradoxical, I find. And also the jogging were featured on rhizome.org before as well. So it's a little bit of a case of biting the hand that feeds. This also harkens back to FloodNet by Carmen Karasik and Brett Stahlbaum, or a collective known as Electronic Disturbance Theater. And actually, they had made a similar kind of project in 1998. And they had used this Java applet they wrote to target government websites in America and also Mexico multiple times a minute. But they would need way more users, like about 1,000 or 2,000, to be doing this virtual sit-in at the same time. So it's really giving, I guess, the internet or people on the internet a lot of trust, or really trying to mobilize individual users on the internet to collectively, you know, do this hacktivist movement. And then finally, I'm going to talk about griefing. It's more so a video game specific term. It's used to describe this kind of willful or intentional infliction of grief onto other users or players of a video game. So it's usually expressed in the form of a team kill or killing someone who's on your own team in a video game. So yeah, it's very harassing and deliberately antisocial. But the aspect I'm interested in is really the way one can use griefing as a way to disturb someone's immersion in a virtual environment. And this video by Brody Condon is the Suicide Solution, where he kills himself in 50 different video games. And so what might appear as an antisocial act in real life becomes cathartic in a virtual environment. And he might have really just done it to see what it looks like in all of these video games, which I find fascinating. And it seems to relate to another project. I'm just looking for the page now. Freedom by Eva and Franco Matt from, I'm not going to say .org. Just hope this loads. I'm going to refresh this. FYI, I guess, as in fuck you.
What is an RP?
One second. Don't kill him. Don't kill my name. He's on. What's your bottom? Your target? Why the seven? Since when was it 7 knives? Think it's on. Alright, man.
What do you want?
What is wrong with this guy?
Really?
You make him unperformance.
Don't kill me, don't kill me.
No, here. Can I tell you so you can tell me how much health he has, please? Don't kill this guy. Tell me
I
how
got one,
much.
drop the nade on him.
Tell me how much health he has. Tell me how much health. Oh my gosh, you ruined it. You both ruined it.
I'm out of here, y'all. I don't know what you made.
My God.
So really what you have is sort of like an inversion of griefing almost, where, you know, there's a deliberate assertion by Eva, who's playing the first-person shooter there, that this is an art performance that she wants to perform in this virtual environment. And really all the other users mostly are not, you know, going to play along. They want to play the game. According to the socialized way, we are going to use this environment to play the game. So it's a sort of an interesting performance in itself. Really, the role of the artist in the video game, I guess, the two environments don't sort of jive, not directly anyway. And they also had made this virus as art piece for the 49th Venice Biennale, and they had released it on the opening day. And I think it's sort of like a form of griefing, really, because of the anxiety or the hysteria you can cause just by, you know, distributing a self-duplicating kind of file around. But they had written this so that it wouldn't actually harm anyone's files or documents or hardware. It's really just a self-duplicating, replicating kind of file. So they also commodified it such that this image you see over here would be printed on a t-shirt, and they sold it, and that image has the source code in it. So I guess they're using this occasion of the Biennale to kind of capitalize on this kind of virus as art that could be sold, and they also burned a CD in which a collector could buy. And they also did re-performances of iconic 70s, physically challenging performances from back in the day in Second Life. So they re-performed Maria Abramovic's Imponderabilia in Second Life. And really, I think that shifted or transformed the original intentions of that performance art piece in creating, a sense of intimacy between the viewer and subject. This kind of performance sort of transgresses the original intention really because of how hyper-mediated the artists were. Firstly, by the screen, knowing that, you're facing a screen and you're controlling an avatar when you're doing this, but also knowing that this is not an embodied performance, but one in which you're using an avatar. And so I just want to end by saying that performance is for people. Whether you're trolling, griefing, flooding, or spamming, you're trying to incite ambivalence. You're asking questions about what it means to be an artist in a social network. And really, it relies on this kind of interaction, or relies on other people's presence on the network in order to ask questions about how these systems are socialized to be used. So also, there are many people who are watching you on the network, so there's a sense of intersubjective surveillance happening that you could use, or you could wiggle in order to assert an opinion. Because I think it's very important to have an opinion about, everything that's happening right now. There's a lot of information, there are a lot of blogs being written about similar kind of material that I'm talking about. So at the end of the day, I think that any publicity is good publicity, and that it's not a bad thing to desire attention if you're trolling and trying to draw attention to yourself. I think when reasonably done, you can assert a very strong artistic voice. So thanks for listening. My website's there, and I'm also on Twitter. I usually generally use it for research. And I retweet and reblog what other people who observe net culture think. So thanks for listening, guys. So if there's any questions or whatever, just shoot away. I wouldn't actually say anarchic, because some of these artists have decided to use a democratic kind of voting system in order to decide what their subversive actions would be. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily anarchic. And your other point was nihilistic? Possibly, because there's a notion, as I guess a subject on the network who, there's a notion that many kinds of art have been done before. And so I guess there's a desire almost automatically to talk back to previous forms of art, be it Marina Abramovic, or even the early kind of screen-recorded performances of Jodi, which is also a collective who work with the computer interface in a particular way. So there is a little bit of nihilism and cynicism, as in almost well, nothing that I make is going to be outstanding. So I'm going to see what I can do socially to ask questions about how people use a network. I'm actually unsure about that. It's a good question, though. If you're nihilistic, would you want attention for being nihilistic? Right, yeah, so when they have, I guess, a profile, they have a name, so there's different degrees of anonymity that you can play with in terms of the, I guess, actions executed. I guess going back to also that point about pretension on Dump FM, the kinds of images that you post could construct a certain kind of identity. And despite being nihilistic, people can also be, I guess the informal space of the internet sort of allows for sort of flip-flopping of subjectivity or identity performance. On YouTube or?
Anyway, TikTok.
I suppose it's to do with the degree of sharing that happens after the attention is sought. Yeah, it's a good question, actually. But yeah, I guess popularity on the internet, yeah, is dependent on hits in a way, or I guess amount of people trolling you back. I mean, I see a lot of people who are working, on the internet with web-based art practices, trying to form a context for kind of various infinitely small things, sort of like what I'm doing. And I think that it's very exciting to be doing that and observing what other kinds of work, however infinitely random or serious the content is. Yeah. For sure, yeah, there's a sense of infinitude. Of course, when you're seeing so many images on all different, kinds of Tumblrs that you're following and all kinds of feeds that you're subscribing to, there is a sense of infinitude. And I guess there's a sense of not knowing whether or not the research you're doing has been done already. But I was just going to bring up an example also of a curatorial collective, Just Chillin', who are using, the space of a website like a gallery to show work by various artists who have written code as net art or kind of web-based pieces to show work. And these are sort of like, I guess, by starting your own venue, much like this, where you buy a page name and just show work, you're able to get it out and reach, I guess, as many audiences as you wish to. And hopefully in that way, other people also blog about it. So that's a way in which one could self-promote, initially anyway. Other problems, I guess, that come into more specifically is, curatorially, when you're talking about something so loose, like matter that's so loose on the web, is whether I'm imposing this kind of general idea, trying to historicize things like, okay, this happened and then this happened, or am I really talking about things happening organically? So these are all criticisms, possible criticisms, that could be, I guess, asked of any person curating. Yeah. Also, I guess if you wanted me to discuss something that recently, I guess, caused a stir, I had written an article called "Why Are There No Great Woman Net Artists?" And this upsetted, I suppose, the women artists that I use as examples. Because not everyone wants to be involved in this kind of discourse, right? There's a lot of, I guess, sentiments that the internet is sort of post-gender because of anonymity. And so I'm asking the question, so why in online exhibition spaces are there way less women being shown and way less women with web-based practices making it into real-life exhibition spaces? And so it's a work-in-progress paper I've decided to post online. So I have an ethic of, showing everything I make while it's being made, which I think it's okay, then I can talk and discourse with other people about what's happening. And then sometimes my opinion changes. But so yeah, I was just counting all these recent exhibitions and counting the number of women in recent exhibitions about media art. And places like YouTube Play and a new kind of commercial digital gallery space, only featured one woman. So really trying to understand why, what kind of factors lead us as curators or programmers to recognize male authored art more. And yeah, this was very heavily contested in a Facebook thread. So definitely there are points of contention in terms of how we view the internet. I suppose even I myself view the internet from, I guess, New Yorker kind of a Northern Hemisphere kind of view. And I also recognize my own privilege to enter this discourse because of my art education. So Yeah. So it's always this kind of like an ongoing debate in terms of like, well, how do we, talk about what is going on in web-based media art, and also how media art's being curated. You're talking about a disparity in terms of, I guess, personality on the internet and also one in real life. Yeah, I suppose these are all doubts that, a person confronts when they're, socializing on the internet. And I think, yeah, there definitely is a difference between an online persona, maybe not a drastic one sometimes, but definitely there's a difference in terms of the way, I guess, being behind an interface or being on a particular interface, be it, commenting on YouTube or, on Facebook. That informality or just typing allows us to act a certain way that we wouldn't in real life. And this is actually, I guess, a problem that Anne Hirsch, Scandalicious, struggles with a little bit, and even more so after having been on TV and being seen by so many people acting a particular way sets up expectations about how she is as a person in real life. And she's actually a very, very intellectual girl, and she has written a lot about that disparity and also those expectations in relation to representation of women as beauty competitors on reality TV. So this is something that I suppose you have to be conscious of if you're going to have an alter ego persona, to be ready to defend, I guess, that disparity between the online persona and the real person that you are. I mean, I've done performance videos in the past as well involving physically challenging things. They're on YouTube right now, and then, yeah, I do get comments about, what kind of a person I am. And, yeah, to be able to, I think, articulate that, why you're doing so is, I think, crucial to your performance practice or artistic practice. Yeah, it's a great point that you're making. That does run true for trying to submit work into exhibition spaces or screenings. Not all festivals or exhibitions enjoy the fact that your work is already online. The idea of that it is already online and in distribution, like, lowers the value according to some festivals and screenings. Others are fine with it, and I guess this is a question of whether or not you want your work online and to be distributed in that way. And my opinion is that if your work is about the internet or inspired by the internet, I don't see why you wouldn't put it online, because you might want to connect with other people who make work like that. And having put my work online for a while now, I think that it's benefited me more than sort of keeping it in a portfolio where I would submit to festivals. I've done that too. So sometimes there is the odd piece of work I do keep and don't post right away. But I don't know, I enjoy posting whatever I've just worked on. I feel like it's a great way to start a conversation with other people who are making similar work and also posting it online right away. So that's sort of how it's worked for me. But definitely, like, people do feel a sense of strangeness for those who already put their work online, like Brad Trammell, for example, the guy who started assembly.info with Lauren Christensen. They, were very used to posting all their academic writing online right away after they wrote it. But then as soon as he became an adjunct prof at NYU, where he's at right now, he's had to sort of hold back on posting his essays right away. And he then feels like it's some sort of a authorship censorship kind of situation, because you have to wait for editors and people who publish the essay to sort of be okay with that being out in the public domain, like the internet. So, and I feel like it sort of even draws a divide between the internet as a distribution arena and also print publication, because I think that they can just both be as valid. Like, there are online journals and also online magazines with academic writing in it. So I'm not really sure there, yeah, why there's a disparity still. I think it's possible. I think it already is. And that when media artists have rigorous academic arguments in forums and on Facebook, they are also making these kind of citations, actually. It's very interesting how when we try to intellectualize a discourse about something that is like a mass technology, we're recourse to print techniques to try and make our arguments. So there are journals like, I think, a magazine called 491 that publishes writing by media artists like Brad Trammell, and also Artfag City, where Patty Johnson writes about media art a lot. She writes about GIFs. She writes about Brad Trammell's ideas on the free internet. And yeah, a lot of academic citation is used to argue about the way internet art history is being written about, for sure. I think you're looking at his career trajectory like it's a linear progression of, his goal was to become the professor, academic. I think he always somewhat was, trying to intellectualize what was happening on the internet. And he felt ambivalent about having to hold back his writing because there was a publishing process happening. I don't think that for him, that's the final end. I think he still continues his internet art practice. But that's something that he constantly has to deal with, is this tension between, institutional processes, and him also, ironically, being part of an institution, just like me. We're part of an institution, and we're talking about institutional critique. It's very circular, but I always feel like there's a sense of reward in being a part of something that studies these things, and I sort of feel like while Istvan Kanter enjoys placing himself outside of the institution to do stuff outside of it as reaction to it, I always feel like knowing the inner workings of a system or an institution is also equally fascinating. So yeah, it's going to be a constant kind of tension, I think, for him. But I think that many web-based artists are multidisciplinary, so they might perform, they also might do installations, they also might make web pages. There's an idea that the documentation of work that you see online, the very kind of clean, kind of geometric-looking documentation on Weavework, is really just one version of an art kind of concept or idea that can be executed in like many different forms. So it could be like printed out on paper, as a set of instructions to be installed. It could be, manifested as an installation. It could be a PDF file with all the images as documentation inside it. So, and this is an idea from Oliver Varick, who is one of the curators of the Weavework blog. Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.